On today's Locked On Giants podcast, we take a look at the winners and losers from New York Giants free agency so far, plus the quarterback solution that makes too much sense to ignore, but yet which isn't being talked about enough. That's all coming your way next here on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all my written work. And as always, a big welcome on into my everydayers, my Blue Crew community members, my newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com to get 50% off your first year. All right, Giant fans, on today's show, we're going to look at so far free agency. We're about halfway through the second phase of free agency. So we'll take a look at the Giants winners and losers. I've got 3 winners, 3 losers. That, I ranked according to what the Giants have done or what they haven't done. So we've got that coming up first. And then in segment 2, very interesting draft scenario was proposed today. And I want to talk about that some more. We're going to call this the double dip in the first. And if you guys read New York Giants on SI, you probably know where I'm talking about. But I want to talk a little bit more about that scenario, which I'll hold till segment 2. And then finally, in segment 3, the quarterback solution that the Giants, I don't think is being linked to the Giants, but it probably should because it just makes too much sense. And I'm not sure why nobody's really talking about this, but I'm going to mention it and I'm going to tell you why I think it makes sense for the Giants. And that's coming up in segment 3. All right. So that is our schedule of topics for today. Again, welcome on in. Let's get into it. Free agency, winners and losers. Let's start with the losers, just to get that out of the way a little bit. First guy that I put on the losers list, Evan Neal. All right. Now the Giants, they had Jermaine Illuminor, who's obviously going to be the starting right tackle, but they also brought in 2 guys that can play right tackle or left tackle, Stone Forsythe and James Hudson III. So if that doesn't scream to you that Evan Neal is headed for guard, I don't know what will. So why does that make Evan Neal a loser? Because he's not assured a spot in the starting lineup. All right. They did bring back Greg Van Roten, who was solid for them. I would think at this stage of the game, Van Roten is the incumbent going in to 2025. So Evan Neal basically has a lot to catch up on as far as making the conversion. And who knows if he can even make the conversion. That's something that obviously they're going to have to see how well he does. But needless to say, this is a make or break year for Evan Neal. And if the Giants go and draft additional offensive line help, which I suspect they will, that's going to further put Evan Neal into a hole that, he's going to need to dig out from. So he gets the first nod on the loser list. All right, let's do our next one. We're going to go with Dane Belton. All right. The signing of Javon Holland basically kind of clinched it as far as Dane Belton's future goes. Dane Belton is in the final year of his rookie contract this year. When he was pressed into starting action in the past, didn't look too bad, but apparently the coaches didn't feel good enough about, once Jason Pinnock left, about turning it over to Dane Belton. So that doesn't bode well, I think, for his potential future moving forward. Now, again, injuries can happen. I'm sure Dane Belton will have a big role on the defense, but ideally you want to have that starter role and you want to be on the field as much as you can. And that's obviously not going to happen with Javon Holland in the fold. Give you one more loser. This is actually not a player. This is kind of, a situation, but I'm going to put Joe Shane in the loser column. Some of his decisions that he has made just, they're enough to make you scratch your head till it bleeds. And one such decision that I still can't get my head around is the decision not to trade Aziz Ojulari last year when they had the chance. And Shane basically, hung on to Ojulari. He wasn't getting what he thought the value should be. And he basically, in my opinion, cut off his nose to spite his face. All right. When you're losing, like what the Giants were doing, okay, they would have probably lost the remaining games. Matter of fact, they did lose the remaining games because Ojulari got injured and Kayvon Thibodeau came back. So what would it have hurt to have traded Ojulari at the trade deadline, gotten a draft pick, an extra pick that you could have used this year? Now there's a good chance they don't even get a comp pick for him next year. And I just don't understand the idea of letting guys walk out the door and, when you have an opportunity to trade them. And here's something else I'll tell you that's kind of disheartening. I looked at Over the Cap, which does a very, very good job of tracking comp picks. And as of right now this is subject to change, obviously, because they have until, I believe it's the first Tuesday after the draft when the cutoff for the comp pick formula ends. But as of right now, folks, the Giants are the only team in the NFC East not projected to get comp picks next year. All right. So if the Giants want to trade up for a certain position next year, what are they going to do for assets? So I just don't understand what Joe was thinking with regards to Aziz Ojulari. I would have made the move. I would have traded him. I understand not trading Darius Slayton, but Ojulari, you knew you were ultimately going to move on from him, even though, they did try to keep him. I mean, come on. It was so obvious that ultimately he was going to go. Now he's with the Eagles and he'll probably have double-digit sacks because that's just what the Eagles do with former Giants. All right, let's get to the winners. Let's end this segment on a positive note. Winner number 1, Andrew Thomas. Why? Now in James Hudson III and hopefully in Stone Forsythe, the Giants have a viable left tackle option should Andrew Thomas, who unfortunately has been injury prone the last couple of years, have to miss more time. So now there's maybe the Giants coaches now have a little bit more of a some flexibility. So if Andrew Thomas is really hurting and it's like, oh, we got to put him out there because we have nobody else. Well, now they have somebody else. So that should hopefully help Andrew Thomas as well as maybe take some of the load off of him this summer as he continues his recovery from the Lisfranc injury and the subsequent surgery that he had. All right, winner number 2, Dexter Lawrence. Why? Last year, the Giants decided to roll with youth next to Dexter Lawrence. Didn't quite work out. This year, Dexter's got some veteran help alongside of him. Guys who, by the way, are not one-dimensional. So that hopefully will help Dexter Lawrence. Now, Dexter Lawrence last year, I don't have to tell you guys and gals, Dexter was a beast before that, season-ending elbow injury. But he can't do it himself. So you put a viable option next to him, a guy who can push the pocket, a guy who has a little bit of pass rushing ability, and good luck in trying to figure out which one of Dexter Lawrence or whoever of those veteran guys that they signed for the purpose of, rotating in on that defensive line. Good luck trying to figure out how you're going to slow them down. All right. The final winner that I'm going to give you in this segment, Darius Slayton. Why? Darius Slayton, if you remember last May, was looking for a contract extension. He was looking for some stability and he didn't get it. Basically what he got was a reworked contract with incentives that I don't think he reached because of just the circumstances, aka Malik Neighbors being on the roster. Now, that, along with some other things, is why I and probably a lot of other people who cover the team thought that Darius Slayton would not be back with the Giants. But at the end of the day, cooler heads prevailed. Slayton was patient. He kept the communication lines open with the Giants. He is now back on a 3-year deal with an out after 2 years. I think it's 3 years, 36 million off the top of my head. He finally got the security and both in terms of the long term and the money that he wanted last year, wasn't able to get. And just by, keeping those communication lines open and just, being patient, good on Darius Slayton. I can't say enough good things about him and what he means to that locker room and just how professional he is. Most guys would have said, oh, you don't want to extend me? The heck with you. I'm moving on. So kudos to Darius Slayton because he could have moved on. I think there would have been a market for him. He didn't. He's back with the Giants. I know I'm happy to see him back, and I imagine that they're going to be that they're happy in the locker room that he is back. All right, coming up next, we are going to talk about double dipping. All right, not a side post, but we're going to talk about double dipping and why it might make sense for the Giants in the first round of the draft. That's coming up right after this. Hey, Giant fans, scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, developing, design, and more. Experts who are ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Upwork offers fast and easy hiring. Just post a job for free, and it's simple. Within a day, multiple qualified candidates will be there for you to choose from, giving you options to find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale any business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com. Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Hey, Giant fans, ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so that you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever before. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So go on, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com to get 50% off your first year. That's Monarch Money, MONARCHMONEY.com. And that promo code again is LOCKEDONNFL to get half off your first year. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And coming up next, or I should say coming up next week, I think I'm going to have a Giant player on the program. I'm waiting to hear back what day this particular individual is going to be available. But it looks like I'm going to have a Giants player for you. So I won't tell you who because just in case it doesn't happen, but that's what I'm aiming for. And of course, we remain on QB watch for this team. I don't think something's going to get done next week, but you never know. Maybe, one day Aaron Rodgers wakes up and says, gee, I'm going to take it easy and just make a decision so that this way everybody can settle in. I'm not holding my breath. I'm not holding my breath, folks. But anyway, let's get to segment 2. Segment 2, we're going to talk about double dipping. And for you Seinfeld fans, no, we're not talking about double dipping a chick. We're talking about double dipping in the first round of the draft. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, Todd McShay released his mock draft, his latest mock draft on Thursday. And he had a very interesting scenario in there. This is actually something that I've been talking about doing But McShay took it a step or two further by actually providing numbers and whatnot. And quite simply, what that scenario is Giants stay at number 3. They take the best available athlete on the board, whether that be, in this case, Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, depending on who's there. Don't bother taking a quarterback. So if Cam Ward is off the board and he's your number 1 guy, and you're not totally convinced that Shedeur Sanders is your guy, don't force a pick there. Don't force a Jackson Dart at number 3. Take the best available, then see how the board falls. And then when you get close to, say Tampa Bay at number 19, see if you can entice the Bucs to trade out of the first round. And for the cost of what McShay proposed, pick number 34, which is the Giants' second round pick number 65, which is the first of their third round picks, and a 2026 third round pick. All right. That's not a bad haul if you consider that the Giants draft, I think, third, I want to say, or second. I'm not sure. I think it's second at the top of the second round. And I believe they had the first pick in the third round. So that's actually not a bad deal. So why the Bucs? Why trade up with the Bucs? Well, as McShay said, you want to get ahead of the Steelers, who quite honestly right now are in the same boat as the Giants with regards to their quarterback. You don't want to run the risk of, if Jackson Dart is still on the board, you don't want to run the risk of maybe, losing out on him. For all we know, maybe Shedeur Sanders will still be on the board at that point. So maybe, if you don't think he's worth the value with 3, maybe you wait and see if he'll fall down the board, because there aren't very many teams in this draft where, if you skip on a quarterback and you want to see how the board falls, you might be able to get a quarterback later in the first round. So let's take a look at that. All right. The biggest challengers, I would say, to this plan would include the Raiders, who, despite having traded for Geno Smith, Geno is on a 1-year deal right now. They have not extended him. Now, if they plan on extending him or they extend him before the draft, obviously that takes the Raiders out of the picture. Seattle, though, who is drafting at, at 18th, one spot ahead of the Bucs, they would be the ones I'd be worried about in this scenario. Seattle, even though they signed Sam Darnold, Darnold's contract is really a 1-year deal. It has an escape hatch after 1 year. So I could see a scenario where maybe Seattle grabs a quarterback. So that would kind of be the danger if the Giants were to maybe count on this. There's no guarantee that, Sanders will be there. There's no guarantee that Dart will be there. Look, I've always been of the opinion that if you're going to take a quarterback, just do it. Don't get cute. Take the quarterback. If he represents the best value on your board, just do it and don't mess around. Cam Ward is the guy I think the Giants would prefer to have, just based on everything I'm kind of hearing. They're not going to get him because I think the Titans are going to take him. Now, will Sanders be available? That depends. The Browns are a wild card here. Now, they, of course, traded for Kenny Pickett, but is Kenny Pickett the long-term answer? Well, he could be. He could be a stopgap, Obviously, the Browns also waiting on Russell Wilson, although I think Russell Wilson wants to come to the Giants. And that deal, once the sides all figure out what they're going to do, Aaron Rodgers included, that deal hopefully gets done. Because quite frankly, I think I would rather have Russell Wilson as opposed to Aaron Rodgers. But, we'll see what ends up happening there. So anyway, yeah, trading back into the bottom of the first round, that's something I've suggested in the past. It's risky, but you see how the board falls, because worst case scenario, the board doesn't fall your way. You use that, that pick number 34 for, you could get a good player there, whether it be a defensive lineman, whether it be an offensive lineman, which they desperately need, by the way, whether it be a safety, whatever the position might be. The Giants have a little bit of flexibility as far as, day 2 picks and day 3, because they did fill a lot of the big holes on the roster. The biggest hole that remains, obviously, is the quarterback. So we'll have to see how that plays out with free agency as we continue to wait for the news on that. So, all right, folks, coming up next, a cup of Joe. How about it? What do I mean? I'll tell you right after this.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown. Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup. Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channels. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free. It's your team every day.
All right, Giant fans, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and it is Friday. I didn't give you a timestamp today, but for what it's worth, I started recording the show at 8 o'clock on Thursday night. But as you are watching this, it is Friday, March 21st. So the reason why I didn't give you a timestamp is because if you notice, I haven't talked about really the quarterback situation as far as the veteran free agents and the latest, rumors about Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, at this point, just get it done one way or another. I mean, I'm sure you're tired of it, as am I, but apparently people are exercising patience, which, at this point, what are you going to do? You can just sit back and wait and hope that something breaks. But anyway, let's talk about another potential scenario for the Giants at quarterback that has nothing to do really with Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. This is something that I would be in favor of. And I think I've mentioned this before briefly on a show. I want to go into it in a little more detail. Now, Joe Milton of the Patriots is said to be available via trade. Joe Milton should not end up costing a team more than maybe a third-round pick. If you're the Giants, okay, you know that you want a veteran quarterback to carry the load this year. You know that, you're maybe not as crazy about this year's draft class, that next year's class is going to be better. It's going to be deeper. So why not, if you are the Giants, say, okay, you know what? We're going to go best available at 3. We're going to skip on taking a quarterback in this draft. And we're going to instead trade for Joe Milton, because a third-round pick, heck, we were going to give that up. We're going to trade up into the end of the first round. So the third-round pick, remember, the Giants have 2 third-round picks. So you send the Patriots your higher pick and see if you can't get Joe Milton. You let Joe Milton sit and develop, because he doesn't have a whole lot of experience, but you let him sit and develop. If he shows promise, you move forward with him. Quarterback solved. If he does not, then next year you try again. You take another swing in what is going to be a deeper draft class. I mean, to me, really, that makes the most sense. If you're not getting Cam Ward, if you're not sure about Jackson Dart and Shedeur Sanders and Jalen Milroe, Kyle McCord, this makes sense. And, you're not talking about having to trade a lot of draft capital. So, I really hope, I don't know if the Giants have thought about it. Obviously, we don't have access this time of year. But this is a scenario I think that, needs to be discussed more, needs to be considered more. Because, like I said, regardless if you trade for Milton or you draft a young quarterback this year, that kid's going to sit, right? If you sign Aaron Rodgers is not going to yield halfway through the season because a young quarterback is ready. If you sign Russell Wilson, he's probably not going to yield halfway through the season either. Because I would think, and I don't know this for a fact, but if I'm Russell Wilson, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I say to the Giants, look, if I'm coming to you, you've got to assure me that I'm going to be the man, that I don't have to worry about a rookie quarterback breathing down my neck, where week to week, I have to wonder, is he going to replace me? I want some sort of assurance. And that, could be, you could say money, you could say whatever it is, but I would think that that is a key point in the negotiations. Now, I don't know that for a fact. I don't know what the Giants have told Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers' camp, but that's what I would think would be one of the stipulations towards a contract. Now, again, that leaves a young quarterback to sit and develop. So, you make Tommy DeVito your quarterback 2. The young guy can start off at the quarterback 3, and then as the young guy gains steam, maybe he becomes quarterback 2 and DeVito goes to quarterback 3. And now, like I said, you continue to evaluate to where, and because chances are a quarterback is going to have to miss some snaps here and there. There might be some garbage time opportunities or whatever. You will be able to see a young quarterback at some point during the year, here and there. So it just makes too much sense because Joe Milton's only, 1 year into the NFL? He's still kind of young, still underdeveloped. Let's see what Brian Dable, if the Giants make the move, let's see what Brian Dable can do as the so-called quarterback whisperer. If he can turn Joe Milton into a viable option. And who knows, if he does, hey, that problem's now solved. You don't have to even worry about quarterback in 2026. But again, if it's not, then you cross that bridge and you acquire more draft assets, whether it be via trade or whatever, so that if you have to trade up in 2026 to get your quarterback, boom, you've got the assets. But then again, with the schedule that the Giants have, the schedule of opponents, it's going to be tough sledding for them. So there's, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but it's going to be tough sledding for them to come up with a winning record that gets them into the playoffs and towards the bottom part of the bottom half, at least, of the draft order next year. But hey, stranger things have happened, right? So anyway, that's going to do it for this edition of the Locked On Giants podcast. As always, thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on Locked On Giants. And before I say goodbye for the weekend, be sure that you check out the Locked On NFL Draft podcast with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez, because with the season now over and a draft season being, really heating up, you can get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day from that dynamic duo. Find the Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Giant fans, I will see you on Monday, unless there's any kind of breaking news over the weekend about the quarterback. I'm not anticipating it. So that said, have a great weekend.